Welcome to Excelsior 32, the online news source for the Excelsior Project from the New York Council of Deliberation.
This evening, our presenter today comes to us with over 35 years of Masonic experience. He's a member of Chicago Masonic Lodge in Pleasant Valley, New York, a past monarch of Tripo Bed Grotto, and currently serves as the president of the Empire State Grotto Association. He's a member of the Valley of the Hudson, AASR. Our featured speaker is a past commander-in-chief, past sovereign prince, and awarded the Meritorious Service Award, and this past summer in Cleveland, Ohio, was coronated a 33rd degree Mason. Having worked for companies such as Ricoh, Kyocera, Panasonic, Xerox, and ADT, and now with the Northern Masonic jurisdiction, he has developed many people to be the best they can be in training and coaching, and it is his life's calling. So it is my pleasure on behalf of the New York COD to introduce our co-director, Brother Bob Siebold. Take it away, Brother Bob.
Hey, Peter, thank you very much. What a great introduction. I appreciate that. So,
Bob, turn on your camera.
Turn on my camera?
Yeah, we want to see you speaking. There you go.
There you go. All right. I wasn't sure if you want to see me or not, but we're in good shape. All right. So let's talk about the book that we kicked off at COD this year, which was Everyone Communicates and Few Connect. Excuse me. This is probably from my perspective, one of the best John Maxwell books, excuse me, that I've had the opportunity to read. From a sales perspective, it's sold over 2 million copies to date. It's been printed into 17 different languages, so this has really touched every corner of the world. When you read the book, it's broken into 2 sections. Part 1 is all about connecting principles, and part 2 is about connecting practices. And what we're going to be doing this evening is we're going to be going through part 1, which is connecting principles. What I wanted to do for you tonight is I wanted to do a little book summary to give you an idea of what this book is about. And I strongly encourage all of you, and in fact, this was in the invitation that Rick had sent out, that I would strongly suggest that you go out and buy this book and read it. If you're not a reader, but you want to listen to it on an ebook or something like that, it's on audio file. And the best place to get it, quite frankly, is on Amazon. It's going to cost you less than $20, but it will give you millions of dollars in return for what you're going to learn. So from a book summary, this is kind of like the crib notes of this book. The most effective leaders know how to connect with people. And if you think about that, and we're gonna take a little deeper dive into that tonight, is think about effective people that you know in your circle of friends, maybe a celebrity, a politician, an athlete, doesn't matter. But you probably immediately know people who are truly effective leaders that know how to connect with people. And a lot of times, some of the best leaders are people that connect with people on a very personal basis, even though you don't even know them. All right. One of the other things I learned from this book, it's not about power or popularity, but about making the people around you feel heard, comfortable, and understood. And I love that. If I'm having a conversation with Pete Flehan, and we're talking about something on a serious note, I want to make sure that he understands that I'm engaged, that I'm hearing him and he's hearing me if he's asking me for advice, that we're both comfortable in that communication and we both understand each other. So those are 3 things that are very important. It's about making people that you communicate with or people around you feel heard, comfortable, and understood. Anyone, and I'll stress anyone, can learn to communicate in ways that build very powerful connections. And we're going to show you in this presentation tonight exactly how you can do that. And in the book, Everyone Communicates, Few Connect, John Maxwell shares 5 principles and 5 practices to develop connection skills. Tonight, we're going to go through the 5 principles, but if I was to do a quick synopsis, it'll show you how to find common ground when you're having a discussion, when you're communicating with someone. How to keep your communication very simple. My dad used to say when I was a kid, keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple, stupid. KISS, never forget the KISS, moniker. And he was 100% right. The more simple you make things, the better. One of the best business people I ever worked with, he said, when you explain something to someone, assume 2 things. Number 1, they don't know anything about what you're talking about. And number 2, make believe they're 5 years old. All right. If you do that and you keep it simple, you're going to get your point across in a very intelligent way, quite frankly. In this book, he shows you how to capture interest, and that's really big when we talk about communicating. That's an important piece. How do you keep someone interested in the topic that you're discussing? How to create an experience everyone enjoys. Obviously, tonight we want everybody to walk away from this presentation enjoying the hour or so that you're spending with us. And you also want to stay authentic in all your relationships. So in other words, people can sniff out pretty quickly when you're really giving them a snow job and when you really are meaningful. So let's take a deep dive into this and let's go into each one of the principles. So part one, connecting principles. There's those 5 principles that I talked about earlier that are foundational for connecting with people. So one of the things that I learned from this book is the true power of connection does not come from superficial interactions with others. It truly comes from connecting with people long term. So in ongoing relationships, we can make an impact of real value, and that's an honest to God fact. Effectiveness of communication relies more on the character of the messenger than on the content of the message, and that's huge. Let me say that again. Communication relies more on the character of the messenger than on the content of the message. So if you're an upright person and you've got character and dignity in the way you're speaking to people and connecting, that makes a world of difference rather than the actual message. You also don't have to be a high energy person or an extrovert to connect with people. You must simply be willing to use whatever energy you have to focus on others and reach out to them. So the 5 principles that are foundational for connecting with people is number 1 is connecting increases your influence in every situation. And we're going to show you how true that truly is. Connecting is all about others. So what does that mean? That means that when you're having a conversation, the conversation isn't about you. The conversation is about the individual that you're talking to, either in a group or in a one-on-one situation. Connecting goes beyond words, and we're going to show you exactly what that means. Connecting also and always is going to require energy. It's a lot of energy to get up and either talk to someone one-on-one or talk in front of a group. I can tell you that when I'm done teaching the course that I teach now for the Scottish Rite Ambassador course, it's an all-day course, and it's about 2 hours in the morning and it's about 2 hours in the afternoon, about an hour and a half. But let's say it's 4 hours. I got to tell you, I am pretty much spent after doing that because I walk around the room, I'm connecting with people, I'm delivering the message of the training, I'm trying to make it interesting, provocative. You know, we're always talking about new subjects. People can try to drag me down a rabbit hole and talk about something that maybe is off topic, so I got to get them back on topic. So I will tell you, when I'm done training, and I've done this for a long time, you're physically spent. So connecting always requires energy. And then the last principle is connecting is more skill than natural talent. You have to learn to work at this, and that is 100% true. So let's take a deep dive into principle number 1. So principle number 1 is connecting increases your influence in every situation. So if you can't find a way to communicate effectively, you will be unable to reach your potential, and that's 100%. So again, I'll lean on one of the other principles. This is something you have to really work at. So connecting truly is the ability to identify with people and relate to them in a way that increases your influence with them. And that's really what we want to do every time we're having a conversation. We want to get wider and deeper with that individual. How much healthier, let me think about this for a second. How much healthier would your relationships be if you excelled at connecting? There's probably people that you're not connecting with for a number of different reasons. And think about how healthier your world would be if every time you communicated with somebody, you were really connecting with them. The best leaders I have found in my experiences are always excellent communicators. Now, believe me, I'm not getting on a political soapbox here, but I picked a Republican and I picked a Democrat just to show you what I mean. Ronald Reagan and probably Bill Clinton were some of the greatest connectors of people that I remember in the political sphere. Reagan was, he could speak to you like your grandfather, and you felt very much at ease when he spoke. Bill Clinton, complete opposite. He was kind of like your big brother or your funny uncle. You know, he again commanded that one-on-one, that connection space. So both of them were great communicators, great connectors. There's a great book, Jim Collins. It's in the book called Good to Be Great. He said the following: the ultimate throttle for growth on any great company or organization is the ability to get and keep enough of the right people, along with having the ability to communicate with them effectively. And he's 100% right. 100%. Jim Collins is spot on with that. You want to get great people, but great people also want to be communicated to and want to feel that connection on a everyday basis. So if you get the opportunity to read that book, good to great, you should do that and highlight that in the book because he's 100% correct. Wherever you find people, they desire to connect with others. And that for me personally, since we're in a kind of a Scottish Rite mode here, that's a great definition of fraternity. Think about it. Somebody joins our fraternity, whether it be, Freemasonry or the Elks or whatever it might be, or they join an appended body of Freemasonry. They join because they have a desire to connect with others, and they stay in the organization their whole life. I have the great honor of calling Scottish Rite brothers. One of the jobs I have is I call all the men in the Scottish Rite in the Northern Masonic jurisdiction who turned 80. It's not an email, it's a phone call. And when I get on the phone with some of these men, they're unbelievably interesting to talk to. They've had some wonderful life experiences, and I really try to connect with them. And when I always hang up the phone, I always say to them, not only happy birthday, but thank you for being such a wonderful brother. And that really means a lot to them. And it's a connection point that I like to express when I have conversations with them. So for me, connecting with others is truly the definition of fraternity. And I found that theme throughout this book. To be a skilled communicator, you must learn to connect with every kind of person and any kind of situation. Unfortunately, every day we wake up, it's not, lollipops and unicorns. It can be some tough positions we're put into, and you can have some of those tough conversations. But what I've learned in this book and what I've learned in the past in my own personal and professional life is that we have to learn to connect with someone, whether it's a positive situation or it's a negative situation, and that makes the situation much more calming. I think you see this. I have a lot of friends that are in law enforcement, and one of the things that my friends in law enforcement are taught is you have to be calming, you have to be cordial, and you have to connect with the individual, or the scene or whatever going on can get out of control. So again, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're always getting to connect with individuals, and no matter what the situation might be. And also the ability to connect with others is one of the most important skills a person can learn to build, because it builds synergy, quite frankly. And it's something you can begin to improve starting today. So if we were to look at principle number 1, connecting increases your influence in every situation. So some examples of connection with others is mastering the ability to take the time to listen to someone else and feel real empathy for them. That's sort of what I was trying to dramatize when I have the conversation with the 80-year-olds when I get on the call to celebrate their birthday. Helping someone else out of an unconditional goodwill. What you're doing is you're just saying, hey, I want to help you because you know what, this is unconditional, it's goodwill, and I want to try to make you feel better. And that's huge. Offering sincere gratitude to another and receiving gratitude from others in return also is that strong principle of connecting. So again, you can learn in principle number 1 how you can really truly connect in every situation. Let's talk about principle number 2.
Hey, Bob.
Yes,
Bob? Yes, Rick. Before we go to principle 2, in the book, at the end of each section, they have connecting one-on-one, connecting as a group, and connecting with an audience. And I just wanted to run through real quickly before we move to principle 2,
sure.
what they had for the principle 1, to increase your influence one-on-one. Talk more about the other person and less about yourself. Bring something of value, such as a helpful quote, story, or book to give someone when you get together. And at the close of a conversation, ask if there is anything you can do to help them, and then follow through. Acts of servanthood have a resounding impact that live longer than words. And then with connecting with the group, they state that you should take initiative with the people in the group and look for ways to compliment those people in the group for their ideas and their actions. Look for ways to add value to the people in the group and what they're doing. It says don't take credit when the group succeeds, and don't cast blame when something fails. Find ways to help the group celebrate successes together. And then connecting with an audience, they suggest to let your listeners know that you are excited to be with them. Communicate that you desire to add value to them. Let them know how they or their organization have add value to you, and tell them that your time with them is your highest priority that day. So sorry to interrupt, but
No,
these are some things I highlighted from the book that if you didn't mention, I was hoping to.
No, 100%. And you're right. A lot of you are leaders in your valleys. And I will tell you something I've always done in Freemasonry, and it was even before I joined the Scottish Rite. When I would go to something, whether it be a lodge function or Scottish Rite or whatever it might be, and this was before, I held a leadership position or whatever. One of the things that I'd always do, and my wife, whether my wife was with me or not, is I'd always go up to the guys who, did the cooking, or the guys who were cleaning up, or whoever, and I put my hand out and I say, hey, I just want to thank you, because if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have had this great day. And you're very important and you're valued. All right. And a lot of people that I did that for, or did that, too, when I spoke to them, said to me, wow, thank you very much. You're the only person who's really come over and said that to me. So Rick's 100% right. You can connect with people in a one-on-one, or in a group setting, or in a large group setting, doesn't matter, but it's just by simple gestures of kindness. And 100% right. And I'm glad Rick brought that out. So excellent. So yeah, thank you, Rick. That was good. So let's talk about principle 2. Principle 2 is about connecting, is all about others. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'll give you a really good example that Maxwell talks about in the book. He says, imagine that you're going to your favorite museum. All right. And listen, I'm a museum junkie. I love history. I love museums. My wife will tell you, she'll walk around or take 30 seconds to look at something. I'm still there 45 minutes later. It's incredible. But you're at a museum, it's your favorite museum, or let's say it's a museum you've never been to before. You've paid your $25 or $30 to get through the door, and you paid an extra $10 because you're going to have a guided tour. All right. However, the tour guide that's taking you around, you're raising your hands, like I raise my hand, and I might ask a question, or I'll, say something, and you're getting either the cold shoulder from the tour guide, or any of the questions that you're asking are just going nowhere. All right. They don't answer any questions from you or anybody else. They don't really interact, and they just dump facts. All right. I don't know about you, but if that happened to me in a museum or in any kind of situation, I would feel like that person is not connecting to me, and I would think that it's all really about them. All right. So that's what you want to avoid. All right. If you think about it, many teachers and speakers think every conversation is about them, or it's an opportunity to them to demonstrate their brilliance and share their expertise. That can happen sometimes, all too often, in the fraternal world. We'll get someone who gets up and talks for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and it's really all about them, and it's what they want to tell you how great they are. That's not really what this is about, and it happens in our professional lives as well. So what you want to remember is that good teachers or leaders or speakers don't see themselves as experts with passive audience they need to impress, nor do they view their interests as most important. Instead, what they do is they see themselves as guides and focus on helping others to learn. And that's important. They work at connecting with people they are teaching or trying to help. So that's an important thing for you guys to remember in connecting, that it's all about the other person. A great book that I read a long time ago is called The Empowered Communicator. It's written by a gentleman. His name is Calvin Miller. And Calvin Miller writes all about this principle. That's really what the entire book is about, is about connecting with others. I strongly suggest you check that book out, because that takes a deep dive into this second principle. What I'd like you to do is consider this. To add value to others and their lives through communication, we must first value others. So in other words, if you walk into a room and you've been asked to speak, or you've got to lead a meeting, and you're not really in tune or passionate about the people you're working with, people pick that up. So if you're going to really add value to a communication and you want to connect with them, you got to first value the people that you're working with or working for. Think about it. To succeed in life, we must learn to work with and through others. That's how fraternity works, quite frankly. You can have a terrific leader, but if that leader does not get the others involved, it becomes a one-trick pony. It's a one guy doing everything. You don't want that. You want everybody all hands on deck. So it's all about connecting with others. So one person working alone cannot accomplish much. So if you think about this in principle 2, connecting with others is a sense of being open and available to another person. That's huge. All right. You develop a human connection built on empathy and compassion. We create a feeling of goodwill to the person we're connecting with. And that's one of the things I love about the Scottish Rite, because one of our core value, one of our major core values, or I would have to say really our principles is that we really want to take care of each other. And I love that about the Scottish Rite. So here's my question to all of you then. How do you communicate an attitude of value? So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to consider these 3 questions before interacting with others. Said better, will the person you're communicating with feel this throughout your conversation? So these are the 3 things I want you to think about. When you're talking to someone in a conversation, will that person walk away and say, that person actually cares about me? That's number 1. Number 2, do you, as the communicator, do you seriously want to help them? And do you seriously want to care for them? All right. And then the third thing you want that person to do is trust you. So you have to say, can they trust what I'm saying? And will they trust me at the end of this communication? So that's really 3 very important things. Do you care for people? Do you care for the person you're talking to? Do you sincerely want to help them? And can you trust them? I think what John Maxwell does, and he says it brilliantly in this book, is mutual concern creates connection between people. All right. Nobody wants to be sold ideologies or opinions, but everyone wants to be helped. All right. I love that. Let me say that again. Mutual concern creates connection between people, and nobody wants to be sold ideologies or opinions, but everyone wants to be helped. And I think that's the human condition, really, in a nutshell, that there's mutual concern and there's that connection between people that we all want to feel and we all want to see. So principle number 2, connecting, is all about others, is really a big point. Rick, Pete, you want to add anything to that before I go to principle 3?
Yeah, sure. I've got the same connecting one-on-one, connecting as a group, connecting with an audience from the book. Connecting one-on-one, it says the best way to connect with people is by making them feel valued. Know what they value by being a good listener when you're with them. Find out why they value those things by asking questions. Share your own values that are similar to theirs and build your relationship on those common values. And then with regard to connecting in a group, it says here, the key to making others feel valued in a group or on a team is to invite participation. Input creates synergy, buy-in, and connection. And to connect with people in a group, you should discover and identify the strength of each person, acknowledge the value of each person's strength and potential contribution, invite input and allow people to lead in their area of strength. Then with connecting with an audience, you should show your audience members that they are important to you by doing the following: express your appreciation to them and the occasion as soon as you can. Rock bands know this really, really well. Thank you. Good night. We love you. You're our best fans. Do anything special for them that you can, such as preparing unique content for them and letting them know that you've done so. See that everyone in the group as a 10, expecting a great response from them. And as you finish speaking, tell them how much you enjoyed them.
Yeah, I love all that. I think it's spot on, 100%. And if you'd like, we can send you these notes afterwards, along with the presentation for sure. We can post some of this. But yeah, Rick's spot on. So thank you for that. So let's
Hey,
go.
Bob. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
No, I was just, you're talking about connecting is all about others. I think when you approach it from the concept of, when you say develop a human connection built on empathy and compassion, everybody has something they need and everybody has something to give. And really listening to the person or the group you're speaking with, and connecting that with when you may have needed something like that, and some way that you have overcome that or you have added to that. You make a real connection in both, and enjoy both: A, give something to them that they need, and B, you're giving something to yourself because you've helped somebody else in a way that you weren't able to before.
Yeah, no, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to build upon what you just said, Pete. So can anybody tell me what would be a program that we have in Scottish Rite that addresses exactly what Pete's just talking about? Anybody want to take a guess? You can shout it out if you'd like, or put it in chat.
Yeah, please feel free to unmute yourself if you know the answer.
Who wants to take a stab at that? What Pete just said. You have something to say, something to give. That person has something back. What is that? What program do we have that does that? Anybody want to guess? Anybody put it in chat?
Nothing in chat.
Nothing in chat.
Family life nights.
Okay, good guess. Okay, you're close. You're close. How about this, the brother to brother program?
I was saying brother to brother, but I didn't come through before.
That's okay. No, that's right. 100%, Dave. The brother to brother program is, and I'll tell you, that's something that if your Valley is not doing, you really should. So real quick, the brother to brother program it's a couple of different things. It's sending a greeting card to someone who is maybe a little down and out, maybe a get well card, a sympathy card, whatever it might be. But it's also just simply taking your membership. Let's say you got 350 members in your Valley. It's very simply taking that list and breaking it up, 4, 5, 6 guys, take X amount of members apiece and just calling them. All right. Because let's be honest, we're all getting older. Some of us, that are our Valley, some of the men might be, past the ability to drive or go out in the evening. And they're not as involved in Scottish Rite as they'd like. Maybe they're ill. Maybe they've gone through a really tough time. Doesn't matter. It's great to pick up the phone and say, hey, brother, how are you? How are you doing? What's going on in your life? Tell me about things that are happening. Let me bring you up to speed on what's going on in the Valley. We miss you. Is there anything we can do for you? All right. How's your family? It's all about getting them to open up and talk about themselves. It's not about you spilling what's going on in your life, because that's not what that call is about. It's about that touch point. And I will tell you, I know Gordon Mocchio is on the call tonight. He's from my Valley. Gordon has done a lot of these calls. And I'll tell you, I've done some myself, and it is a wonderful feeling. It is a great feeling to pick up the phone and then call 5, 6, 7, 10 of these brothers and get off that phone after maybe an hour or two. You're going to feel phenomenal. All right. Because you learn things about yourself. You learn things about these men. But what you've done is you've made them feel connected to the Valley, and you've made them feel important. And that's huge. All right. So again, connecting is all about others, and it's a great thing. Anything else, Pete or Rick, before I go on to principle number 3? All right, we're gonna get
Ron McDuff.
All right, very good. So principle number 3 is connecting goes beyond words. So I want you to think to the left of the screen. There's 4 things. So it's what people see is how we connect visually. What people understand is how to connect intellectually. What people feel is how we connect emotionally. And what people hear is how we connect verbally. So let's break each one of these down. So connecting visually. Anyone want to guess how long you have to make the right first impression? Anybody want to throw out an answer? What do you guys think? Let me say that again. How long do you think it takes to make the right first impression?
1 second.
How many?
5 seconds. 5 seconds.
Instantly.
Instantly. Okay. All right. Well, who said 5 seconds? Was that you, Tim?
Yes.
Okay. You're off by 2 seconds. It actually is 7 seconds. All right. So you have 7 seconds to actually have someone really in a microcosm like this say, wow, you know what? I'm getting an impression of this person. All right. So you have 7 seconds. Right. And my dad used to say, you never get a second chance at a first impression. He was 100% right. So if you've only got 7 seconds to really connect with someone and for them to really get a good impression of you, how do you do that correctly? Well, one of the first things you can do is you can eliminate personal distractions. All right. If I'm meeting someone for the first time, I want to use good eye contact. I want to zero in on them. I want to give them a good firm handshake. I lean in when I'm going to speak to them. I want them to know that I'm engaged and I'm really trying to connect with them. So I don't like other people walking over and tapping me on the shoulder or whatnot. I feel that that's a distraction to the individual I'm working or not working with, but talking to. So I want to avoid or limit as much as I can personal distractions. I want to expand my range of what we call expression. So you want to smile and you want to be expressive. All right. So here's what I want to do. I know this sounds crazy. I want everybody to turn their camera on. All right. Everybody turn your video on. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm looking at the screen. There we go. All right. Okay, here we go. There's everybody. Jim Cobb, Tim, you're no Frank. No Frank's iPhone. All right. We got a couple guys aren't on yet. All right, we got most everybody. Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to look dead in the camera. All right, you ready? And I want you to smile. And I want you to hold that smile for about 2 seconds. Ready? Here we go. On 3. 1, 2, 3. How did that make you feel? Just by doing that, how did that make you feel? See, Dave Barnes is still smiling, right? I mean, how did that make you feel? Makes you feel better, all right?
Great.
We all had a little fun with that, all right? We got to see what Fleahan ate for dinner. This is exciting. So, I mean, it's good stuff. My point is that just smiling at someone and having a not a frown, but having a smile on your face makes a big difference. Also, the more expressive you can be will also help you connect visually, all right? Now you guys can turn off your video because, you know, Rick's going to freak out that we're going to screw up the bandwidth and he's going to blame me. So, and he won't be smiling, take my word for it. So we want to smile, we want to be expressive. And also when you're connecting with someone visually, you should really move with a sense of purpose. So I said earlier, I like to lean in and shake someone's hand, or, you know, sometimes when I'm shaking someone's hand, I might shake their hand and I might grab their arm like this, you know, I mean, because I want them to understand that I'm really trying to connect with them. So connecting visually is huge. Connecting intellectually, let's talk about that. So to connect with people intellectually, you must know two things about them: your subject and yourself. All right, let's talk about that. There is no substitute for personal experience and desire to connect with people's hearts. Let me say that again. There is no substitute for personal experience and desire to connect with people's hearts. Effective communicators are comfortable in their own skin. My son is dating this wonderful young lady. I'm sure he's going to get engaged to her probably in the next couple of months. She's a wonderful young lady. He's been going out with her for a while, and it was her birthday. October is a big birthday month in my house. My new son-in-law was an October baby. I'm an October baby. And if my son gets engaged to this young lady, she's an October baby too. And we all went out to dinner, and she has friends, and she's 24 years old. All right. And, you know, I'm a people person, and I went and I was talking to her girlfriends, and we were at this restaurant. It was very loud and it was difficult to hear people. So I sat down next to these young ladies and I said, oh, so what do you do? You know, what are some of the things that, you know, you're interested in, and where do you live? And this one young lady said, oh, I live in New York City. And I said, oh, where in New York City do you live? I live on York Avenue. And I said, really? Where on York Avenue? Oh, I live up on 86th Street. I said, oh, wow. I said, my wife and I used to live on 72nd Street in York Avenue. Really? And I said, yes. And she goes, oh my goodness. And we had an immediate connection because we both live, she still lives in New York City. And my wife and I did live in New York City. So we had an immediate connection. And then she said to me, oh, were you born in New York City? I said, yes. I said, I'm from Brooklyn. She goes, oh my God, where from Brooklyn are you from? And I said, oh, I was born in Bay Ridge. She goes, oh my goodness, I went to Fort Hamilton High School. That's right in Bay Ridge. My parents are from Bay Ridge. And we got into this whole conversation about Brooklyn. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful, you know, and here I am, I'm 61, she's 24, but there was no age gap there. We had an immediate connection because we were connecting intellectually. We were talking about restaurants that we liked. We were talking about how beautiful Brooklyn is, and the Brooklyn Heights, and all the culture in Brooklyn, and, you know, all the famous historical sites, et cetera, et cetera. And we had an immediate connection intellectually. So what I did there was I really connected with her heart. And quite frankly, she connected with my heart because we had a similar background and we understood our pedigree, our DNA of where we came from. So again, that's a great way to connect with people intellectually, understand the people that you're going to talk to. And more importantly, you know, once she told me where she was from, I understood kind of my audience there, and I understood myself, and I could, you know, bring out my own real world experiences and what it's like to, you know, eat Brooklyn pizza and, you know, go to great restaurants and, you know, and go walk across the Brooklyn Bridge and things like that. So we had an immediate connection there. So very important when you connect intellectually. When you connect emotionally, you want to win over another person. That's really what you're trying to do. But first, you got to win over their hearts, and the rest is going to follow. So people may hear your words, but they feel your attitude. All right. Some of the best people that I've seen speak are people that really have a great attitude towards you. I don't know how many of you ever knew Sam Williamson. He's a past Grand Master. He just passed away. He was a past Grand Master of DMLA. He was a past Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania. And Sam was a wonderful man, wonderful man. And when you got to speak to him, he always connected with you emotionally because he always had a phenomenal attitude. And he was in his 90s when he passed away. But Sam would make you feel very special. And he would connect with you on an emotional level where even though he was talking to a large group of people, you always felt that he was talking to you personally, and that's huge. What people hear connecting verbally, you know, connecting verbally, Maxwell says, and this is almost a keeper quote. I'll tell you, this is a great quote. He says, words are the currency of ideas, and have power to change the world. All you need to believe is that you can do that. All right. I love that. Words are the currency of ideas and have power to change the world. Think about that. Think about all the things that you're involved in your life, or your fraternal life, or Scottish Rite life, or your personal life, professional life, doesn't matter. Think about how words have changed, and words and the birth of an idea have the power to change situations that you've been in, or made your job better, or your family better, or your valley better, your lodge. So I love that. Words are the currency of ideas and have the power to change the world. And I truly believe that. And we're gonna look at some folks that have been really great orators in their day, and you'll see exactly what I'm going to mean. Rick, anything that you want to kick in on principle 3, you or Pete?
Sure. Yep. Again, Maxwell in the book has connecting one-on-one and group and an audience. For connecting one-on-one, he says that people often look the importance of the nonverbal aspects of communication when trying to connect with one other person. So he suggests that you connect visually by giving the other person your complete attention. As he says, the eyes are the window of the soul. See the other person's heart and show your heart. Connect intellectually by asking questions, listening carefully, and also paying attention to what isn't being said. And you can connect emotionally through touch. But it says here, be careful to honor boundaries and remain appropriate with members of the opposite sex. I would say, remember to remain appropriate with anybody. And then with connecting in a group, he says that connecting with a group is an excellent way to learn how to think and communicate like a coach. So he says you can connect visually by setting the example. People in the group will do what they see. He says connecting intellectually by investing in people's growth. Build on what they already understand so they can develop to a higher level. And connect emotionally by honoring the group's effort and rewarding its work. And then connecting with an audience, he suggests that you can connect with an audience visually by smiling. This lets people know they're happy to be communicating with you. You already demonstrated that. Connect intellectually by pausing strategically to give the audience time to think about something you've said. And connect emotionally through facial expressions, laughter, and tears.
Excellent. What about, did you go over with people here? Connecting verbally?
Well, I'm just looking at what he had in those 3 categories, and he said speaking to the audience is the most difficult of the 3 settings when it comes to communicating beyond words.
Yep. No,
I think this whole section is about connecting beyond words, so different things other than just the words.
Sure. No, I'm with you.
Bob, I actually wanted to bring something in on what people hear.
Sure.
Now a good many of us on this call tonight are from the jurisdiction of New York. New York is a very diverse state with colloquialisms and idioms that are unique to different parts of the state. So sometimes when you hear something or you hear a turn of a phrase used, you may assume it's something. What's a really great practice is if you hear something and you realize you're interpreting it through your own kaleidoscope, so to speak, it's always a great practice to say to the other person, you're saying this, and what I'm hearing is this. Do I have it right? They feel like, and truthfully feel like, that you have heard them, and they're also understanding that you are trying to hear them and trying to understand them. It's a real connection.
Yeah, no, you're 1,000% correct. And one of the, sometimes what happens is that we're talking to either an older or a younger generation, words can be interpreted totally incorrectly. I remember when when my daughter was younger, she used to say, "Oh man, she's so fat," right? And I'd be like, "Katie, you shouldn't say it." She'd go, "Why? But she's really fat." And I'd see this, one of her friends, and I go, "No, she's actually really thin." She goes, "No, not FAT, PHAT." And I was like, "What the heck is that?" Then that's when you start to realize when you're getting old, when you don't understand what your kids are saying to you. But fat meant something like that she was cool. She was with it. But I interpret it as something totally different. So yeah, you're 1,000% correct. You got to really be connected to that. So right, spot on. All right, let's go to the 4th principle, which is connecting always requires energy. All right. there's 5 pieces that Maxwell talks about here. He says initiative is excitement, clarity is to be prepared, patience means you have to slow down a little bit, selflessness is be giving, and stamina is recharging. So let's talk about initiative. So to be excited to connect and communicate with someone, but you don't feel you have all the answers. All right. You don't always have to, be the answer grape. You don't always have to know everything. All right. It's a great quote by Malcolm Bain. He says, if you wait until you can do everything for everybody instead of something for somebody, you will end up not doing anything for anybody. All right. And he was spot on. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you can't save the world, but you can save one person at a time. All right. And that's hugely important. So with you got to be excitement. You got to bring that excitement. But what you also want to make sure you do is that, you communicate, but you don't have to have all the answers. It's okay to say to someone, I don't know what to tell you here, or I need to find that out for you and I'll get back to you. All right. But obviously the key is to close the loop and make sure you do that. In preparation, I think that really what you got to think about is you got to break that down into 3 mission critical areas. First thing is you got to know yourself. Personal preparation to add value to others. You must take yourself more valuably. All right. You've got to think that you're valuable and you're going to bring value to your audience. You have to know your audience. You have to be people prepared. Connecting with people begins with knowing the people you're going to be speaking with. The more you understand about people in general, the better you'll be able to connect. The more you know about the specific people you're trying to connect with, the better off, quite frankly, you're going to be. When preparing for a meeting, try to learn as much as possible about the attendees. Maxwell uses a list of questions that I think are phenomenal before he's going to actually get in front of a group of people. And here they are. Here's the questions he always asks. Who are they? Who am I going to speak to? What do they actually care about? Where do they come from? Where are they? What do I have that I can offer them that's going to make their life better? And how do they want to feel when we're done speaking together or I conclude? Those are some really great things to think about. So the next time you're going to be addressing a group of people, think about that. Then we have the third thing, which is knowing yourself, professional preparation. You must know what you're talking about. So you got to have substance. You just don't want to get up and just blabber on. One of the things that drove me nuts when I was young was when I was in DMLA was when you become master counselor of a chapter, they actually say it in the ritual that you have to give a public declaration. They actually say to you, are you ready to give that declaration? And you have to say yes. And I remember my old chapter dad, his name was George Marivelle, was a great guy. And he would work with us to make sure that our master counselor speech had substance and answered all those questions. Did we know the audience? Did we know what we were talking about? Because what he didn't want us to do was get up and say, hey, thanks very much. I'm glad being master counselor of the chapter. Thanks, mom and dad. Okay, I'll see everybody down for coffee and cake. He didn't want that. He wanted you to get up and deliver a personal story about what the day meant to you. Why was it important to become master counselor of your chapter? And you're like 15, 16 years old. And for some guys, it was torture to get up and speak in front of a whole room of people, but they knew they were going to do that. And Dad Marivelle, as we called him, got us ready for that. So again, you got to know what you're talking about and you have to have substance. Let's talk about patience. Being in a hurry prevents most of us from connecting with others effectively. So if you're going to speak in front of a group or you're going to speak one-on-one or even a small group, you want to take your time with people. That's important. If you want to connect with people, you need to just slow down. Good connectors do not always run the fastest, but they're able to take others with them. So the way I know this is a canned statement, but it's true. It's not a race, it's a marathon. So when you're up speaking to people, make sure that you take your time and you're enjoying the conversation and you connect with people. That's huge. And then there's selflessness. All right. It's easy to feel connected to a giver. You give of yourself when communicating, which fosters strong connection. So if you're giving a lot of yourself, if you're asking the right questions, if you're engaging people, if you have a discussion as substance, people are going to say, wow, this individual is really selfless, and I want to give back to him if he asks me a question. That's huge. And the other one is stamina. All right. Connecting with people can deplete us of energy. Tonight, when I'm done with this conversation, we'll kind of debrief, 3 or 4 of us, and then I'm going to unplug because tomorrow morning I have a Scottish Rite committee call at 9 a.m. and I have to be prepared for that because my day starts at 8. So I want to go downstairs. I want to enjoy some time with my wife, watch a little TV, just relax, because This takes a lot. So you want to make sure that you really are cognizant of that, and you find ways to recharge yourself, not only emotionally, mentally, physically, and also spiritually, quite frankly. So principle 4 is really important. Connecting always requires energy. Here's another thing. If you listen or read a lot about people who are great orators, all right, every one of them really valued their personal time and had something that recharged them. All right. I remember President Bill Clinton, he was a big jogger. All right. Ronald Reagan used to love to draw, and he used to do a lot of crossword puzzles and whatnot like that. Harry Truman used to like to play poker. All right. That was a way he could just, stress down from all the pressure on him as being president. So think about something that's going to help you recharge, that's going to fill up your batteries, whether it's exercise. I like to go to the gym and walk on a treadmill, listening to music, maybe making a nice meal, going for a walk, being with your family, watching a TV show or a movie that, really makes you laugh or makes you feel good. That's how you're going to recharge. So, Rick, anything for principle 4 that you want to enlighten the group with?
Well, sure, actually. From again, Maxwell, from his book, connecting one-on-one here, dealing with at all levels, and with that it requires energy. And I can tell you, having hosted a number of things throughout the years, even if I wasn't physically running around the place, keeping everybody glued to what was going on is very tiring. And anybody who's a teacher here can tell you that if they have to stand up and talk to a class, even for an hour, can really be draining. So, but anyway, Maxwell says with regard to connecting one-on-one, that the next time you try to connect with someone one-on-one, that you should gear up for it mentally and emotionally, just as you would for an audience. And he says that if you bring intentional energy to the conversation, you'll make it much easier for people to connect to you. So we've got a few things here. And then connecting with a group, he says the leader or the communicator will always need to marshal and generate energy. Again, rock stars really know how to do this. So the next time you communicate to a group, he says, don't allow yourself to become complacent. He says, before the session begins, this is what John Maxwell actually does. This is some of the guidelines that he has for himself. Before a session begins, he goes to each person and he introduces himself. He asks each individual a question to discover something unique about him or her. At the beginning of the session, he gives them ownership of the meeting. He says they ask him questions and he does his best to serve them. And he's got a few others here. And he says if some of them are hesitant to enter into the discussion, he tries to draw them in by telling the others about their uniqueness and how it relates to the subject. And then he usually ends their time together by asking people how he can help them to be more successful. Some of his guidelines here for connecting with an audience with regard to energy. He says the larger the crowd is, the more energy you must provide. So anybody who does any speaking will tell you that you got to play to the size of the room. The more energy you bring to the process, and the better you are at conveying your energy to the audience, the better your chances of connecting with them. So those are some of the things that Maxwell suggests as guidelines for energy. How about you, Peter? You got anything?
Yeah, Pete.
As an actor?
Yeah, it's about being an actor. It's about communication in general. In today's day and age, information comes at us quickly. It comes at us on our phones, which are glorified computers, of course. And because of that, and because everybody can listen, and also everybody can publish, if you will, or create content, it happens at such a rate. We have to take care when something is important to slow down. We are not competing with a Twitter feed when we're speaking with someone else. We are more likely to, in a group situation that's social, speak quickly and jump into pauses because we are competing with those things. But when you are actually connecting and you want to be heard and you want people to know you're thinking about what you're saying, slow down to listen and slow down to speak.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, 100%. It's interesting what you were saying, Rick, about being unique. When I teach my ambassador course, one of the first things I ask the group to do, in fact, Peter just went through it, and Rick's gone through it a couple of times now. I say that the group, so we all get to know each other. I'll say, and I don't start with myself. I'm the last guy to speak, but I'll ask the group when we go around the room, and I'll say, tell me your name, tell me the value you're associated with, and tell me one unique thing about yourself. And the reason I do that is because when people tell me their name, that's simple. People tell me their value, easy, simple. But the unique thing is pretty exciting. And some of the stories that you get by the time we go from one side of the room all the way over to the other, it's really interesting. And when someone says to me, like for instance, well, I'm a licensed, not licensed, that's probably the wrong word. I'm an educated, I'm a trained chef, and my expertise is cooking Italian food. All right. Hey, you got my attention. I love Italian. I like to eat, period. But I love Italian food. Giddy up, let's go. And the first thing what I'll do is I'll say, great, tell me more about that. What's your favorite Italian dish to make? What's your favorite Italian dish to eat? Do you like Northern Italian or Southern Italian? I get that person to open up because that's a connecting point for me. All right. It allows me to get to know more about that individual. And then when we have a break, instead of me going over and saying, hey, Pete, how do you like the class? I'll go over and I'll say, man, you know what? There's nothing like, lasagna, or do you call it sauce or do you call it gravy? All right. Get into a whole conversation, and it builds a connection point between myself and that individual. Because I might not see this brother for a couple of months, maybe until I go to a Valley reunion, or maybe he's in another class or whatnot. So that's a great point. I love that. So excellent. Thanks for that, guys. That's good stuff. So let's go to principle 5. All right. And principle 5 is connecting is more skill than natural talent. I totally believe that. All right. I totally believe that connecting is more skill than natural talent. You might have raw talent to speak, but you've got to work at it. All right. This is something that you have to craft. It is a craft, quite frankly. You have to be able to work at it, and it's very important. So what I want you to think about is non-connectors, all right, versus people who are connectors. And I'm going to give you some examples of both, and we'll take it a step further. So a common style of a non-connector is someone who speaks in monotone. All right. I don't know about you, but I want to throw myself off a building if someone's speaking in a monotone voice. Drives me crazy. All right. They have lack of substance and content. There's nothing really to bite on when they're speaking. There's no true substance. There's no content. They speak down to the audience. Maybe they even come off as angry. All right. I've been in situations like that where someone is a guest speaker and that happens. Here's the worst. All right. Here's the worst. It's all about them. It's not about the men in the room or the women in the room. It's not about the people who do all the heavy lifting. It's all about them. All right. They have poor body language. They don't move around. They're not animated. There's a lack of humor. All right. Life is too short. We need to interject humor at all times. And there's no practical application of the subject matter. In other words, I'm going to tell you what to do, but I'm not going to tell you how to do it. And I'm not going to give you the return on investment of why you should do that. So those are some common styles of non-connectors. However, we've got people that are connectors, all right? So they have the audience laughing and thinking. They ask questions of the audience. They're always interacting. They're very passionate. They use illustrations. They make each person feel that they're talking like they're their best friend, all right? That's happened a lot. One of my best friends in Freemasonry is a fellow by the name of Mark Isaacs. He's a Lutheran minister. He's very funny. He's extremely bright. He's got 4 or 5 PhDs. He's an educator. He's a Lutheran minister. He's a minister of my church. And every time Mark gets up and he does a sermon on a Sunday, my wife and I always drive home and I'll say, not only did Mark educate me, but he makes me feel like he's talking directly to me, because he's that good at talking to his congregation and to a group of people. People who are connectors are easy to listen to. They're brilliant with the subject matter. They really understand the subject matter very well. They're very informative, all right? They put everyone at ease when they're having a conversation. They have a confident voice and demeanor. You want to be with them. It's somebody you want to hang out with. Makes you feel very confident. Gives you hope. That's huge, all right? And they make you feel important, all right? Quite frankly, after they're done speaking. So here's my question, all right? On the screen, you see some of the finest communicators of their time. Got Martin Luther King, got Margaret Thatcher, the first female prime minister of Great Britain. You've got Colin Powell, you've got Steve Jobs, President Ronald Reagan, all very different characters here, all different kinds of cats, all right, for sure. But what I want to do is I want to ask all of you again. You can come off your blank screen, come on video, pot up your audio for a quick second, and I want to ask you: do you think these people were connectors, or do you think they were non-connectors, and why do you say that? So I'm going to pick on a couple of people. Jim Cobb, I see you just popped up. Jim, the people you see on the screen, pick one or pick them all, doesn't matter. Do you think they're connectors or non-connectors?
I think most of them are connectors.
Okay.
I never
Okay,
heard Thatcher speak. We know Martin Luther King was definitely a connector.
100%.
I heard Powell speak once. Very good connector. And Reagan was very young, but I know he captivated the nation in many ways.
Yep. 100%.
And Jobs for sure.
Yep. Mike Morris, you're our deputy. What do you think? I know you're a man of business and you traveled the world. What do you think about these folks? Connectors or non-connectors?
Well, I think every one of them's a connector, without a doubt.
Yeah.
You look at the Steve Jobs, to build a team that he did at Apple and to set that strategic direction, and with Ronald Reagan, how many people can't remember the phrase, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall.
Yeah. 100%. Anybody else? Ed Kirby, how about you, sir?
All connectors.
You're in reverb, man. That better? All right, we'll go on to somebody else.
Ed and I are sitting next to each other. That's why.
Oh, that's why. Okay, no problem. How about
Bob?
you, Paul McLaughlin? What are you thinking? Connectors or no connectors?
Well, I think they're connectors, and if I were to talk about leadership and connectors, I put Colin Powell right up there at the top.
Yeah, I'm with you. I actually had an opportunity to see him speak at an educational conference in front of about 15,000 people, and I wasn't. This is funny. You're gonna laugh, but the room where he spoke was only separated by a big curtain in a sort of like a convention center, so I could read the whole thing. And I got to tell you, he was one of the most dynamic speakers I ever heard in my life. He was amazing. He really, really was amazing. Something else too. You think about Martin Luther King. Simon Sinek in his book, The Power of Why, or Start with Why, he talks about Martin Luther King, and he says, think about what Martin Luther King did. Martin Luther King went to Washington, D.C. and talked about the I Have a Dream speech. And this was before he could publicize it on radio. They wouldn't allow him on television because he wasn't media friendly at the time, and there was no internet. Yet thousands of people showed up, and that was probably one of the most beautiful speeches of the social justice movement in the United States in the 1960s. Think about that. All right. And I couldn't agree more with Mike when he said, take Steve Jobs. He definitely, was a mover and shaker and created a great company. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about people perhaps in Freemasonry or in Scottish Rite or your house of worship or in your family, your professional life, that embrace these tenets when communicating. And are they actually, a connector or a non-connector? So you guys can keep your audio open. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to take you through kind of what I call the think tank. All right. And the think tank is nothing more than an open Q&A that we can go through. And I want to see if what Maxwell's trying to communicate, quite frankly, in the book has kind of stuck in your head. So my first question is, and anybody can answer this for sure.
Hey, Bob,
Yes, sir.
do you want to take down your PowerPoint and we can pull everybody's
Yeah.
cameras back up and with
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. That's a great idea.
All right.
There we go. Now I can see Mark Berkson in his handsome face. Look at him. That's right. All right. So I guess the first question is, how much healthier would your relationships be if you excelled at connecting? Let me say it again. How much healthier would your relationships be if you excelled at connecting? Who wants to answer that? What do you think? I know, don't all speak at once now. I'm going to pick on somebody. Okay, Big
Well,
Al.
Bob, I'll jump in there.
Okay.
Right. If you're just speaking at somebody, they're not hearing you and you're hearing them and you're not advancing anything at all, You're not even advancing the conversation, let alone deciding whether or not something is actually going to be accomplished.
Okay, I love that. I'm with you on that. Mark Berkson, you're a talented, handsome guy from Long Island. What do you think? How much better would your relationships be if you excelled at connecting? Not that you don't, I know you connect, but how much better would it be if you did it even better?
It can always be better than what you're doing, even if you're doing a good job to begin with. You
Yeah,
gotta just watch yourself and make sure you're connecting with your audience.
absolutely.
You can
100%.
tell when you're not.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's go to the next question. The ability to connect with others, communicate effectively with them, and increase influence can be learned. True or false? Let me say that again. The ability to connect with others, communicate effectively with them, and increase influence can be learned. True or false? Gordon Moki.
True.
Oh, I got a true. Who said true?
I say true.
Who said true? Was that Anthony? Who said that? Oh,
It was-
Terry.
It was
Terry,
Cliff.
why?
It was Cliff Jacobs.
Oh,
Cliff Jacobs.
okay. Why is it true, sir?
As someone who works in television, I can apply these principles to creating content that we share with an audience. And so I think that it's a skill that can be learned. And certainly it can be used in a lot of different venues, not simply standing on a stage addressing people, but if you're working in an editing room creating content, again, you still want to be able to connect to your viewers.
Yep.
And I think you can apply these principles to, again, creating content that folks will be looking at virtually.
No, you're spot on. 1,000%. I love that. Mr. Barnes.
To be honest, if it wasn't a skill we could learn, we're wasting our time here.
Yeah.
Because all this discussion is based on the idea that this is something we can learn and get better at.
Yeah.
And if we couldn't learn it, then we wouldn't. This would be a futile exercise. So,
Sure.
It's certainly a skill that takes practice. It takes confidence. It takes all of the things that we've discussed tonight. And most importantly, getting out there and doing it and having real empathy for what you're doing and the people you're talking to. And as time goes by, you'll get more and more confident at it until it becomes almost second nature.
Yep. Yeah, you can never fake sincerity, I don't think, because eventually it comes out where you're insincere. So yeah, I think you're spot on. Let me give you the last one. Why is the law of connecting so important when communicating? Who wants to take that one? Why is the law of connecting so important when communicating? What do you guys think?
Well, you have to find a common ground.
Okay.
You need, that's what, and that's what's meant by connecting. I mean, anyone can come across with fancy words and fancy phrases and people know that and they recognize that and they just glaze over. But you need to establish a meaningful connection. You need to communicate that you're sincere in your efforts, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, no, you're 1,000% correct.
Well, from a technical point of view, Bob, communication's a two-way street. You transmit and you receive.
Yes.
And if someone's just transmitting, well, where's it going?
Yeah.
So that's where I think of it. Communication's a two-way street.
Yep. No, I think you're spot on. Plus,
Yeah,
you're
but at the same token, you have perhaps 10 seconds to create that bond where someone's going to say, I'm comfortable with this person. I see it through his body language. I see it through his eye contact. Most streetwise people can sense that in little time.
Sure. No, you're right there, man. 100%. Well, guys, listen, that really wraps this up. It was a
Thanks for spending spending time with XLCR 32. The experiences, comments, opinions, and views shared on this program are those of individual Freemasons and do not reflect the official position of any Grand Lodge, Concordant, or Appendant body. Until we meet again, keep on reaching higher.